and Technology Director, Mr. Thomas Duke Robinson. We want to recognize our Executive Director, Dr. Michael O. Miner, and our Program Director, Lottie Miner. By now, you are aware that we are making ongoing changes to ensure that we are providing current and relevant information and resources designed to uplift and equip parents and other child caregivers or providers with practical tools, timely resources, and faith-rooted encouragement. So we encourage you to share our new Healthy Together Mississippi Facebook page and our new website, www.healthytogethermississippi.org, and to stay tuned for all the exciting new changes. Well, November's health and wellness observances include the American Diabetes Month, Lung Cancer Awareness Month, and National Family Caregiver Month. Another interesting observation or observance that's included in November is called Movember, an annual event in November where participants grow mustaches and engage in other activities to raise the awareness and funds for men's health. So look out for that one, and participate in it if there's some event near you. With the holiday fast approaching, the rush of excitement and activities can overshadow our intentions and our commitments to our own self-care. So today we have speakers that will remind us of the importance of our own self-care while taking care of the ones that we love. And they're going to provide us with knowledge and resources, and the permission to lead with our own self-care during this holiday season. And yes, even think about beginning a new tradition for upcoming years. So a note to self, I did say years, not year. So we have with us today Miss Whitney Cox and Octavia, I know I didn't, Atibaha. I knew I was going to mess it up. That's one of those new counties here in Mississippi for me. But she's the county administrator for the Community Counseling Services in Starkville, Mississippi. And prior to this, she served as the director of alcohol and drug services for the Pines and Caddy Hill Recovery Centers and House. So that these are two residential treatment centers for individuals struggling with recovering from addiction and co-occurring mental health disorders. Both of these are located in Columbus, Mississippi. Now, this lady has a lot of credentials behind her. She's a licensed professional counselor, a licensed professional counselor supervisor, a certified clinical trauma professional, and a certified addictions and therapist in the state of Mississippi, and nationally certified therapist. So we know that she knows what she's talking about when she presents to us today. She received her master's in clinical mental health counseling and her bachelor's in psychology from Mississippi State University. Whitney is married to her husband, Will, and she says that they have 3 wild but beautiful little boys. So, Miss Cox, and also we have joining us today Miss Tabitha White, and she is the Metrics Assistant of the Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation in Hernando, Mississippi. And she is also a full-time caregiver. So welcome, ladies. But before we start our presentation, and I will tell you more about Tiffany just before she presents, excuse me, Tabitha. I don't know where I got Tiffany. Who's Tiffany? Tabitha just before she presents. So I want to say that we encourage you to please share this webinar with your social media platforms. And then I want you to get your pencil and your paper and be sure that you take lots of notes and write down questions that you may have as both presenters do their presentations today, because we want to make sure that before the end of the presentation, we answer any questions that you might have about today's presentation. So again, welcome, Whitney. We are excited to hear the information that you have to share with us today. So Duke, will you begin sharing the screen for her, please? That's the Duke. Those are just resources that she sent over. The PowerPoint presentation should be at the bottom of the email. Those resources, ladies and gentlemen that are listening, will be posted on our website later. And there are some wonderful resources that Whitney has taken the time to put in one space for us so that we don't have to go looking for them ourselves. And we want to take an opportunity to thank you for that.
And
Right.
Ms. Patina, I don't have a PowerPoint attached to the email.
I'm sorry. So if you would just start just sharing some information, then I'll go and
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. So I'm really excited to be doing this today, and I thank y'all for inviting me. As a caregiver role that all of you have, most of you either are a caregiver either in your professional life or your personal life. But what I know about caregivers is that you're probably serving in that role in all areas of your life. And so the hope today and the objectives that we're going to be working on are helping us figure out what that looks like, the impact of that, because as a caregiver, you are so accustomed to caring for everyone around you and running everything and handling everyone's to-do list that oftentimes we are quick to forget our own needs. And so, one of the objectives that I hope you get out of this is being able to recognize what it looks like when you are experiencing some of that burnout, some of that fatigue, and the pitfalls of being a caretaker. And so, the last objective that I know that we are going to get to is looking at a holistic means of treating that. So, self care for mind, body, and soul. And I'm going to give you some tips and some pointers of things that can be helpful so that we don't neglect ourselves and that we focus a lot on how to better care for ourselves so that we can continue to give the quality of care that we're used to giving to people around us.
he should have it. So just a minute, and I do apologize to you and to our listeners for
It's
this
fine. What
glitch in our program.
It's okay. What I will do is I'll just keep moving right along so that when he gets started, we can just pick up on the slide, that I'm talking
Wonderful.
about. Okay. So we went over objectives, but what I want to say first are the strengths of a caregiver. Um, Caregivers often experience an increased self-worth and they have a lot of self-esteem usually about themselves because it feels good for us to help other people. If you fell into the role of a caregiver, it was not by accident usually. Usually that is like a servant heart, a spirit of helping someone who truly cares about other people and wants to help them. And I think that's the ultimate strength that a caregiver has. On top of that, caregivers are very resourceful. They have served in a role where they had to learn things quickly. They had to develop new skills so that they can get needs met for themselves and for other people. So, caregivers are resourceful, they are empathetic, they are often great communicators because they've had to be good communicators. Problem solvers, quick learners. So, there's a wide variety of strengths that caregivers possess. And because of all those strengths and because of all the skills that they often have really good connections and relationships with the people around them, particularly maybe the people that they are caregiving for, but also family members, friends of that loved one. So they tend to have pretty good relationships with those around them and a good set of skills that they use in all areas of their life. Now, the pitfalls of that are because we get so accustomed to caring for the needs of everybody else, we often neglect ourselves. And so, with that, we can start to experience stress, fatigue, burnout. The quality of our own personal life tends to decline, right? We may be having someone who is experiencing like improved quality of life because of the work that we're doing for them. But then on our own, behind closed doors, most people wouldn't even know that our own quality of life is often not where it needs to be because we give so much of ourselves to other people. With stress comes a weakened immune system. Because we have so much fatigue and burnout, we tend to get sick more often. We may have physical pains. We may experience somatic symptoms like headaches, nausea, skin conditions, chest pain, like things like that can often be psychological, but come out in a very physical way. So that can be a good indicator that we're experiencing a lot of stress and burnout. Grief comes in a caregiver role, whether it's prolonged or gradual. Sometimes it's hard to watch people we love and people we care for not get better and not be able to solve all of the problems that they have. It can come with a lot of helplessness sometimes when we're not able to just fix everything. There can be frustration, anger, isolation. We can become so consumed in the other person's world that we isolate from the people in our own world. We can experience relationship dysfunction for ourselves. Sleep disruption is very common. That's a big pitfall for caregivers. Our sleep is often disrupted, whether we're not getting enough sleep or it's like very restless, disturbed sleep. So we're not getting a full night's rest and we wake up feeling just as tired the next day. Over time, the weight of our responsibilities can impact our mental well being. And so that's where I want to kind of start talking about some of the differences for women and for men in a caregiver role. For women, about 1 in 5 of us experience a mental health condition at some point in our life. And so that's a pretty drastic number. 1 in 5 women will have a mental health condition at some point in their life. A recent study by SAMHSA said that about 29 million American women, which is about 23% of the female population, have experienced a diagnosable mental health condition in the last year alone. There's a lot of historical background that goes into why women's mental health often gets underrepresented, underdiagnosed, not the best quality of care historically. Um, in the Egyptian period, way back when, they linked all of our women's mental health conditions to our reproductive system. They actually used to call it wandering womb, or like uterus dysfunction, hysteria, witchcraft, like all throughout history, you can track how women's mental health got very much misrepresented, and it was blamed on like our hormones, our reproductive system. There's even a quote by someone that pretty much said that women can't be trusted for their own mental health care because they're driven by their reproductive systems. So very dismissive of the things that we're thinking and feeling. And while progress has been made, the historical impact of women's mental health is still felt in today's mental health care industry. I think Mississippi is still one of a few states that women can't even get a hysterectomy without consent from their husbands. So there's still this belief that we don't know ourselves well enough to even understand what's going on with ourselves, which can be very impactful on us and our ability to receive appropriate help. Next slide. For men, right, men's mental health comes with a whole host of separate issues that make treatment difficult for them. Men struggling with mental health often experience issues like irritability, anger, substance abuse, and they tend to cope through escapist behaviors. You're more likely to see a man deal with mental health stress by overworking himself, engaging in sports, excessive exercise, or high risk behavior, gambling, substance use. Like those are ways that men tend to try and cope with their mental health condition, but it usually only leads to worsened symptoms or even more conditions that get developed later on. A lot of their struggles are linked to societal expectations of masculinity, which can lead to men being reluctant to seek help due to fear of appearing weak or emotional. Society teaches little boys from a very young age that they have to be tough, right? Suck it up, walk it off, dust yourself off. You're fine. I'll give you something to cry about, right? Those are messages that a lot of little boys hear growing up. And so as that boy develops into a teenager and a man, they have been pretty much programmed to believe that they're not supposed to feel, as if they're just supposed to be a robot and not have normal human emotions. And if they do have them, they're not supposed to talk about them or they're weak, right? So for men, it's very difficult. They tend to also have some of those psychosomatic symptoms, headaches, digestive problems, which then lead to more social issues and problems within relationships and increased conflict. Because if they're not communicating and they're not taking care of themselves or telling anyone what's going on, and they're then escaping in these other unhealthy ways of coping, everything around them is going to be impacted because of that. Next slide. Um, Symptoms for mental health conditions between men and women can present very differently, right? So women, we tend to be very emotional. We communicate usually with what's going on with us, and you may be able to pick up for a woman when something is going on, when they're not okay. But for men, it can be masked very easily. They can present as very emotionally detached. There's that overworking, that drinking, that isolating. So sometimes it's harder to pick up on their mental health symptoms and what they may be struggling with. They're also less likely than women to seek professional help. All of that societal stigma often prevents them from ever even entering a counseling office in the first place. Or if they do, it's at like a doctor's office and they're talking about the somatic, the physical symptoms, but leaving out the part of the emotional stuff that may be going on. Next slide. So, what happens when we don't take care of ourselves? We are more likely to experience persistent sadness, feelings of hopelessness. You may see noticeable changes in mood, energy level, appetite, difficulty sleeping or sleeping too much, appetite and weight changes, misuse of alcohol, drugs, or both. Oftentimes, substance use begins for a lot of people as a form of self medicating, trying to not have to feel, think about, or deal with the things that are weighing them down. Decreased energy, excessive fear and worry, extremely high or low moods, aches, headaches, digestive problems, anger, irritability, social withdrawal, thoughts or behaviors that interfere with work, family, or social life, right? So, anxiety and depression, a lot of us often experience some of those symptoms throughout our life. Where we know it becomes problematic is when our life starts to suffer because of it. When people around us start to pick up on it or notice it, or we're having problems at work or at home, that's usually our cue that we need to be talking to somebody because it's starting to get bad. And then especially if thoughts of death or suicide starts to come into play, right? That's when our symptoms have reached a very severe level that we need to be reaching out and asking for help. Next slide. Optimal care should recognize our differences. Our brain is wired differently between men and women, and we experience these mental health conditions very differently. Women report higher levels of empathy and emotional understanding than men. And while that can usually be a good thing, it can also be tied to worsening depression, anxiety, and trauma. If we feel things very intensely, then we feel bad things very intensely too. Studies show that women are twice as likely as men to experience depression. Women between the ages of 16 and 24 are almost 3 times as likely to experience a common mental health issue as males of the same age. And women are twice as likely to be diagnosed with anxiety as men. But I do want to point out that the discrepancy in that number can't always be trusted because of what we just talked about. Men are less likely to seek help. And so they're less likely to report that anything's going on. So some of these studies can very much be skewed because of that stigma we talked about earlier. Next slide. What are we struggling with the most? Men tend to experience higher rates of autism, schizophrenia, antisocial personality disorder, and alcoholism. Women are more likely to experience depression, anxiety and specific phobias. Generalized anxiety disorder is typically where we tend to stress, worry, and hold a lot of fear for everything and anything. If there's not a problem, we're going to find a problem. It's like your brain is just wired to look for worst case scenario, glass half empty. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong, right? It's like your brain's very much trained to think like that. Women are more likely to experience post-traumatic stress disorder, suicide attempts. But what's interesting is that men die from suicide at 4 times the rate that women do. But women attempt suicide 2 or 3 times more often than men. And so the discrepancy there is because of the method of suicide. Men are more likely to select a more fatal means of a suicide attempt than women. And then women are more likely to also have eating disorders. So women account for at least 85% of all anorexia and bulimia cases and 65% of binge eating disorder cases. With eating disorders, they're centered a lot around control. And so if there are areas in our life that we feel like we don't have control over, I can control what I consume and what I don't. And so that is where a lot of them can stem from, is being able to establish some sense of power and control. And if I can't control anything else around me, I can control what I do to myself. And so that's kind of some of the root cause there. Next slide. So holistic means of self-care, mind, body, and soul. We have to take care of all of those avenues. So if we're starting with our body, we need to be exercising. You need to get outside, get some sunlight. You need to make sure you're getting enough sleep. If I'm not getting enough sleep, I am more likely to be irritable, angry, fatigued. I'm more likely to maybe even have some psychosis if I'm not getting hardly any sleep at all. But I need to sleep. I need to eat. I need to make sure that I'm showering and taking care of myself, staying hydrated, like doing the things that fuel my body so that I can continue to not only provide for those around me, but also be able to fuel my brain so that my brain can function in the way that it's supposed to. When we look at soul, spirituality is so important. And it does not matter what religion, what higher power you connect to, there has to be some connection there, some sense of purpose and feeling like that you have a reason to be here and that you have a purpose to serve. Giving yourself and others grace, I think, is one of the ultimate skills we need to practice, especially for ourselves. It is okay for us to not be okay. It is okay for us to not do everything perfectly. I was on a webinar not long ago, and one of the speakers was talking about self care, and she said, you have to give yourself permission to fail. And that was so profound for me. It stuck out because we tend to be perfectionists as caregivers. We may have a long checklist of things to do, and we feel like we have to do all of those things. And it's okay sometimes for us to give ourselves permission to not get it all done, right? Like, I'm going to give myself permission to not do the laundry today, and I'll be okay. It doesn't mean I'm a failure or that I was no good or that I can't do anything right. It just means I'm giving myself permission to not do it all. And I think that that comes with a lot of freedom. Social connection, right? We need to have people around us that we love. We need to make ourselves be social, connect with others, do things that we used to do. But also we need to know how to set some boundaries, because sometimes our social connections, even those that we care give for, we have to be able to communicate and set boundaries. We have to learn how to say no, right? If I cannot do something, if I'm not able to, I have to be able to say no to protect myself as well. Journaling, art, music, finding new hobbies. You should have an identity outside of what you do for other people. Setting manageable and realistic goals, right? We have to know that the goals that I'm setting for myself and other people are doable, right? If it's not doable, I'm just setting myself up for failure. And I would not be a good therapist if I did not include therapy, right? So we talked about body, we talked about soul, but for our mind, we need therapy. We have to be taking care of our mind in that way and having some kind of outlet for the things that we're working on. Next slide. So there are different therapy approaches. There's medication. Here's the thing. It does not have to be forever. Let's say you're going through a depressive episode, an anxiety episode. You do not have to take medication forever, but if it helps for right now, it's worth it. You also don't have to feel the way that you're feeling. There's talk therapy. Sometimes just talking to someone is the best medicine of all. Having someone to just validate what you're feeling and be on your side, and an outlet to vent to. But then we have to build purpose and resiliency. Next slide. So, what is resiliency? It's strength, right? Just because we're predisposed to something, or just because we're high risk for developing a mental health condition, or just because we experience something does not mean our entire life is defined by it. Just as we pass along genetic factors for addiction and mental health issues, we can also pass along resiliency to others, our children, the people around us. But in order to do that, we have to speak about the unspeakable, the things we're not saying, the things we're not doing for ourselves. We have to do. Take care of you, take that leap, and feel the relief that comes from taking care of yourself. Once we start working on those things in depth, we start to gain better insight into ourselves, into solutions. We can find acceptance over things that maybe there's not a solution for. We can build strength and coping skills. We receive affirmation and validation from those around us. And then other people see all that. And so not only are we helping ourselves, but we're helping other people who watch how we handle those things with grace and strength. Next slide. We need to avoid seeing a crisis as an insurmountable problem, right? Just because we are experiencing distress, just because we are experiencing something that feels catastrophic, doesn't mean that we can't solve it, doesn't mean that we won't be okay, and it doesn't mean that we can't overcome it. We have to accept that change is a part of living. We need to move towards our goals, take decisive actions, look for opportunities for self discovery, nurture a positive view of yourself. I think that's the most important one. We tend to look at what we do wrong or not well enough or what we need to do better. Let's start looking for what we do right, what we're doing well, where we are succeeding, and focus on those things. And that helps us to keep things in perspective. And it also helps us to maintain a more hopeful and positive outlook. So, what I hope the takeaway is that yeah, your role as a caregiver is hard, and it definitely over time creates a lot of wear and tear on your mind, body, and soul. But it is possible to restore that and restore that strength and build that resiliency so that you can continue serving in that role while also making sure that your quality of life is not impacted anymore. And that's all.
Wow. Thank you. That was such a thorough presentation, and you did a wonderful job. Again, we apologize for the glitch, but
Okay.
I couldn't tell there was a glitch because you just rolled right along, and you did a wonderful job. And in fact, I had written down some questions that I wanted to ask you, but you know, all but one is answered, and I don't know. You did such a wonderful and thorough job.
Thank
But
you.
I wanted to ask you if you are familiar with the 3-3-3 anxiety rule.
Right? Is that like the three things I see, three things I hear, three things I feel? Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
grounding technique for a lot of people. And sometimes it helps bring us back into the present moment when we can get so consumed in the past or the future, focusing on the three things that I see, hear, feel, touch, right? It can be a lot of different things. It helps us to kind of remind us where we are and that we're okay.
Thank you so much. And that's a rule that I'm going to try to look to remember myself, because when sometimes you get so overwhelmed that and you can't sit down and color right then.
Mhm.
You can't pick up the phone and call somebody else.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that we tell ourselves to do for self relief or comfort, or just try to get through that situation. We can't do so.
Mhm.
This 3-3-3 rule is something that is very simple and something that we can do, and hope that will help to ground us and help us not scream or tear our hair out or snap at mama or daddy or whoever we're providing the care for. And so,
Mhm.
again, thank you so much. And we will be talking to you again. I'm sure that people will have questions
Okay.
after we hear Ms. Tabitha White's presentation. So it's been very interesting. So now we're going to talk. Our next speaker is Miss Tabitha White. And she is, as I said earlier, the Technology and Metrics Assistant at Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation. But she's also a full-time caregiver, and that's the role that she is going to talk with us today about. And so she has more, she says she has more than a decade of experience caring for seniors, and she has developed a deep understanding of the importance of self-care while supporting others on their journey to better health. She holds a master's degree, she has a master's degree of business administration with a concentration in human resources from the Union University. Outside of work and caregiving, she says she enjoys spending time with her family and cooking during the holiday seasons. So everybody that don't want to cook, maybe we should go over to Tabitha's house during the holiday season. Welcome, Tabitha, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
So,
for having me. Thank you for thinking about me today.
okay, so I have some questions that I would like to ask, and since since so when did you first become a caregiver?
I first became a caregiver around 11 or 12 years old when I was caring for one of our senior neighbors after the loss of her husband.
And to date, what would you say your biggest challenge has been?
Because I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and an employee of Oak Hill, I would say my biggest challenge has truly been time management and burnout.
Okay, can you share some strategies with us that may help us to navigate successfully around those challenges?
Yes, ma'am. Some strategies that may help to navigate successfully around those challenges are prioritizing yourself and well-being. I've experienced illness from the stresses of burnout and overextending myself because just as Mrs. Cox stated, by working, and I've worked other places other than here, I've just extended myself. Okay, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And then I'm a mom and a grandmother and a wife, and I'm a full-time caregiver. You know, I have a loved one in the home, and I'm a full-time caregiver for that person. And I have to put everything on the calendar, everything. If I do not organize everything, my time management skills are just totally out of whack. So I use my calendar. All my family and friends know that anytime they ask me for anything, that calendar in my phone is the go-to. The first thing, can you do this? Can you go here? Can we do this? Can we do that? The first thing I do is check my calendar. And if my calendar is full, then I'm not afraid to say, no, I can't make it this time, or I can't do it this time. As it relates to the burnout, you know, that helps me even with the burnout. I'm not afraid to say no. I take time out for myself, and I believe in preventive care. So those are the things that I do. I take care of myself, and just try to exercise, do all of the things that I'm supposed to do to just kind of keep myself from being burned out and not taking on too much.
So I heard you. And I think that when you said that burnout, and one of the most effective ways is to have a calendar, and then not be afraid to say no. And stop. We're not super women. We're not superhuman beings, and so we have to stop and realize the limits and not be afraid. First of all, you got to know your limit.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know yourself. Sit down with yourself and figure out what it is you can do and what you can't do, and then be honest about it and share that information with others. And don't be afraid to ask for help when you feel like you're being overwhelmed. So I'm on board with that. I don't necessarily do it, but I know how to say it. So I just wanted to know that are there any other tips that you would like to share before we hear from our listeners today?
Yes, I was actually looking at the I have a couple of things. One thing is qualities that help me in taking care of myself is just some of the things that Ms. Cox said, actually, is what I already had written down was spiritual grounding. I make sure that I spend some time with myself every single morning. That is very important because if I do not, then I find myself just having my patience are short and I'm just running around and different things are stressing me out. And that way I get up, I exercise, I read the Bible, I pray, just listening to music, whatever it is, I take that time out for myself, whether it be 20 minutes. If I'm exercising, of course, it's way longer than that, but or if it's 5 minutes, I take that time out to spend with myself, by myself, before I proceed to do anything for my loved one. Also, I listen to my body and I proceed accordingly. If there are some things, if I'm tired that day, some things that are on my calendar, I may not do. And, even just as Mrs. Cox was stating about laundry or whatever the case may be, I listen to my body. If my body is saying you can't do anymore, then it's just, I can't do it. And the third thing is to prioritize my wellness. I don't miss any doctor's appointments. I'm a firm believer in preventive care. Dental appointments, whatever the case may be, I am on it. Whatever the doctors give me to do, because if I'm not healthy, it makes it difficult for me to care for the person, my loved one. And my last tip is what helps me is having a person of accountability. My friend, I think she's still on here, Tonisha Brown, I call her my Brownie Brown. She helps me to prioritize myself. And she helps me to stay grounded. She'll sometimes say, oh, she told me the other day, I think you need a nap. And I said, but I'm just so tired, but I can't. She said, no, just go lie down and just lie down and rest yourself and take a nap. And I kept saying, and she kept saying, no, promise me you're going to do it. Promise me you're going to do it. So I promised her that I would do it. And in promising her, when I did take that time to lie down, that I thought would be maybe 10 minutes, I slept for 2 hours. And that's all I have.
So what I hear you say is that if you're not in good health, then you can't make sure that anybody else is in good health. You can't care for those you love. It goes back to what we talked about some past webinars, is that when you get on the plane and the attendant is talking about if an oxygen mask comes down, put your mask on first, because if you're not breathing, you can't help anybody else breathe. And so that principle goes across our lives, is understanding what your limits are. First, understanding yourself. And that's something that a lot of us don't do. We don't tend to sit down and really take stock of who we are and what we are and why we are and what we believe and why we doing what we doing, what we doing. So it's important, first of all, that you understand that, and then that you get a schedule and you follow that schedule based on what's important to you and what's important to that person. And then you do those things, and you have someone, you call them an accountability person.
Yes.
because it's easy to tell yourself, after I get through with this, I'm gonna take me a nap, or after I get through with this, I'm gonna sit down and read, and sometimes it never happens. After never gets there. So if we're having someone that's holding us accountable,
right,
and not being afraid, it's got to be somebody that you respect, and somebody that's not afraid to speak up, and somebody that when you make that promise to, that you're going to keep that promise, because that promise is important to that relationship. So again, I want to have that. You're the type of person I've learned since we worked that do not like to be up front. You like the background, and you do so well. But so I really want to give a special thank you to you today for agreeing to come on and share your very valuable information. And I like the way that you and Whitney have not even seen each other, not even talked to each other, but you blended this presentation very well. so that it can be most beneficial to those who are listening. So again, thank you so very much. So now it's time that we, well, before I do that, let me ask you, is there anything else, Whitney, that you want to say that you think that's important or that's burning, that you think that we need to know?
I just want to say how much I loved what Tabitha said about prioritizing herself, because as a caregiver, it is so hard for us to prioritize ourselves above other people. But being able to do that, like, shows like ultimate, like, self-worth, self-respect, self-esteem, and good insight into ourselves. So, like, that's great, great tip.
And it's not selfish. Thank you so very much. So now what are we going to open up for questions? I wanted to again remind you before we do that, though, to be sure to share this presentation or this webinar with your family, with your friends, your co-workers, your church members, whoever, because it's very important that they hear this message, because it could save somebody's life. So again, thank you, ladies. And so if you are on social media, please put your comments or your questions in the message section and comment section, and Duke will share those with us. Or and if you are on Zoom, please feel free to open the mic or raise your hand, or you can share in the comment section also, and we'll read those questions. But you can please feel free to open up and ask any questions that you might have now.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you, ladies. Wonderful, wonderful. I just want to say, as a person who experienced some of those things, those burnouts and whatever, great information. And I will say this, a lot of times as Christian women, we have the tendency to want to be a helper to everybody we meet. But you know, the word of God says, love others as you love yourself, or to do unto others as you would do unto you. And if you can't love you first or show yourself love, how can you truly? Some people think they can only be valued by doing for others, but you're valued in yourself because God created you. And I want to say this, a friend of mine, Elder Jackie Knight, she said, NO is a complete sentence. Sometimes we might want to say no to someone, but we can do like God sometimes, say, not right now, if we feel that's too harsh. I just want to say thank you, ladies. Wonderful. I'm learning and still learning. I have to give myself an appointment to say, okay, Brenda, no more. On Mondays, I've adopted that day as my rest and stay in the house day. Thank y'all so much. God bless you.
Thank you. I love that. No is a complete sentence. Write that down. No is a complete sentence, and don't be afraid to use it. Are there any other questions or comments? No. Okay. Well, we won't prolong the hour. So again, I want to say thank you to you, both of you ladies, and just stick around for a few minutes when we go off social media. We will remain on Zoom for a few minutes. Okay, now it's been a really great day, and the knowledge that is shared has been helpful to me, and I hope that it's been helpful to you. But I wanted to give you some friendly reminders. So our Ask Mary and Pat Zoom webinar is 6 p.m. Monday, November the 24th. Let's Talk Real Estate with Aria Mays is tomorrow, Thursday, November the 20th at 11 a.m. And finally, we want you to remember that our third Wednesday Parent Resource Chat, we will not have a webinar in December, but we will be back on January 21st, 2026, and we will be talking about glaucoma awareness, thyroid awareness, and National Blood Donor Month. So we want you to please make sure that you join us and encourage your family and friends to join us. And we want you to know that you can always learn more information about us at our new website, www.healthytogetherms.org. And I challenge you to go on there because I'm sure that if you do, you will find information that will benefit you and your family. So Once again, I want to acknowledge our Executive Director, Dr. Michael O'Miner, and our Program Director, Lottie Miner. This has been a production of the Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation, empowering parents and strengthening families in the Mid-South region and across the state of Mississippi. So again, those of you who are on Facebook, have a blessed day. Have a happy holiday and stay safe. And those of you who are on social media, please stay around as soon as we sign off on Zoom. As soon as we sign off on social media, on our other social media networks, we will open up the mics. And if you were too embarrassed or ashamed or whatever to ask your question,